Hi, Jara. Nice to have you back on the podcast.
Hi, nice to see you, Adam.
Yeah,
So
no, you too,
excited.
you too. No, it's
Definitely.
good to have you back.
Thank
But
you.
no, you're welcome. But you were saying just a minute ago um, about your work.
Yes. Yeah, so I do farmers markets, and I was at 3 or 4 events, and then when it all stopped, this has been since March 11th. Excuse me. And so to not be in front of people when you are a designer and making jewelry or making custom pieces, for me, I don't make two pieces that are alike. And so to be in that community and to be authentic in front of somebody and to have that story and that relatability is so important. And I've just missed it. And it was crazy. This girl walked by and I was wearing, I wear my pieces too because I'm just super excited. Or I had my new anklet on. I think I showed you a picture on Instagram,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was all. And so she made a comment, but that's like the best thing for me is when somebody notices your stuff or your craft and then you're excited about it. Like I still am so genuinely authentic. Like I made this waist chain, or it's like they call them waist beads. And so I researched them. They're from Ghana. There's people from Africa that wear them. And it was just a really cool, ornate thing. And so when I posted it, the one girl was really ecstatic. So those are the kind of things that when I get that genuine reaction from people, it's almost like better than money. You know what I mean? Because that's not why I do it. I want my pieces to bring joy to people. And I think it was really cool to be back at the market. You know what I mean? Even though there was maybe 20 people that walked through, everyone stopped and we had that interaction, and it was literally almost like a high because you just have that interaction with people. And I think so many times that during your process you forget those moments of why you started doing what you love. You know what I mean? And my daughter will make fun of me because I always talk with my hands, you know what I mean? Or I'm super excited. But I mean, literally when the girl was like, oh, do you have any anklets? I mean, I couldn't jump around the booth fast enough. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, girl, I got it right here. So it's just one of those moments where like you can't fake that, you know what I mean? And so to try to convert that online, it's like I haven't even tried to attempt that, because even when I rarely buy my beads online, it has to be somebody that I've known, I've either seen in person, because every bead has a story for me. And I want to know how my beads are produced, why they're produced, the intention behind them. You know what I mean? Not everything is made here in America for us. And so you have to outsource things, and then beads only come from certain countries. But people are generally concerned about how things are done. Like everything I get is from the Philippines. It's not mass produced. The inlaid wood beads that I think I showed you, all the abalone and mother of pearl, all those type of things, they're all hand done by a family in the Philippines. So to me, they have a connection with my piece. So when I throw it up on Instagram and somebody comments, I mean, it just literally has come around the world, you know what I mean? And somebody's wearing it and I made it, and then to tag them, it generally brings that mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, and 2 sons into that mix of community. And it's so hard, like I said, to do that right now online, for me anyway, personally. So I've just been trying to navigate through that process right now. So that was my second market. And so to be, it's March 2nd. And so I just have the one. So I like cherish it. And yesterday was just a really good reminder of why you're in the business and why I started, you know what I mean? Because I in the first time we spoke, I told you about how I made my own mala and how I was blinded. So let's backtrack. I was a behavioral therapist. I worked with autistic kids, and I was punched and detached my retina, and I lost my sight in my left eye. Had so many surgeries and things like that to try to fix it. It didn't work. And my friend's like, why don't you do a mala? Like, do you know what mala beads are? And I said, no. And it's something that you meditate. You have an intention and a prayer, and each bead has a prayer or an intention, and there's a section. And so she was explaining it to me, and I'd never heard of it before. And so that's how I started, in this process. And I really took it to heart. And so it's a genuine connection to why I'm in it. Again, I'm not in it to make money. And I think people who run into me, it's hard for me business-wise, and that's what I'm trying to craft now. I'm not a good business person in it to make money in that kind of sense. Like, I'm your person if like you need a pep talk, a cheerleader, or like I'll make anything that you want under the sun, and I will do backflips to do it, to make it bring joy to you. You know what I mean? Authentically. But to have you say like, well, let's do a trade, or how much do you think, or I'll put prices on my pieces. But like if I'm forced or pigeonholed, it's very hard for me. Like I crumble. Like I wish I had that ability to be like, no, these are my pieces and it's worth that much. You know what I mean? But the main goal for me is to bring joy to people, I think.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a really learning lesson, because it was so abundant when I was in person, and then to have it just stop was it's really humbling. You know what I mean? As well as missing that component too of your business.
Yeah. No, I love like your work and like your beads, and like, you know, there's, like you said, it's such a personal thing. Like you said, it's a family that's made them, and then it's come to you, and you've done what your little thing with it,
For
and
sure.
it's such a, like, you know, close and intimate, you know, piece, isn't it? You know, each one is, you know, and you craft it yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you know, your that connection with, like, you know, your customer and people and connections,
Mm-hmm.
it's how, you know, you do business, isn't it? You know, with, like I said, markets and selling, it's, you know, face to face. So it, like I said, it's difficult. You know, how do you, you know, take that online, and you haven't
Yeah.
got that same connection with other people, like you were
Right.
saying.
And especially if you're a tactile person, like to pick it up or to see a shine, you know what I mean? Like labradorite and moonstone, they have epic blue flash, you know what I mean? Or to see, like, it's just, it doesn't do it justice, you know what I mean, for me. And I think a lot of people I've run into, they're like, you're really going to burn out, or this is not going to last very long, because you can't keep jumping through hoops for people. But for me, I don't ever want to get to a point where I can't remember somebody's name or why I made the piece. I always want to have that component of it. And company out there, and not to throw anybody under the bus, I won't name names, but when you start it as a company and you get so big, and then you have other people making it. Do you know what I mean? Like would want to oversee on the people I surround myself with if I ever got that big. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
not
yeah.
having that component, because I think that's what separates myself from other people, or, you know, something that is made, you know, and again, not to discredit the more inexpensive item, you know what I mean? But that's not my pieces. It's not Nordstrom's or Tiffany's either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to like cheapen it either by saying it doesn't genuinely have like a lot of love behind it, you know, when it's made. So I always want to
Yeah.
have that. You know, like you say, it's really difficult, and I just don't have, kind of stopped trying. In the beginning, I was trying to think about ways I could convert, and now I'm just, it's almost like an ebb and flow. You know what I mean? This is the time to either recharge, be recreative. You know what I mean? And learn other, like we were talking about technology. That is my Achilles heel. You know what I mean? A business owner. So, and a new small business owner. So those are the kind of things I think during this time, like we have peaks and valleys, right? And I think during those valleys, that those are the times we really need to take inventory on who we are and what we want to accomplish. And I'm doing that right now with my family, because this is one of the most trying times for me and my kids. And I have Richie, who's an epic role model, but to be out of school. So they'll be out 7 months before they go back to school online. And he's in high school, 7 months. And so for me, to reconnect, and I feel like sometimes you dive into certain things, and I'm trying to explain to them to have balance. And for me in my business, in my life, I don't have that balance right now, because I get so excited that it's 14 hours into what I'm doing. And I'm sure like with you podcasting, editing, you're up, you know, you're jazzed about it, you know,
Yeah.
so stoked. Like I made those waist beads, and I'm so excited. You know what I mean? And I'll stay up all night, or if I, you know, those kind of things, but I've genuinely forgotten that quality time, because the kids have not had that at school. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
of
I think
course.
like we're on autopilot, and I just keep grinding or putting my head down instead of being like, okay, listen, I have to stop. You know what I mean? It's not going to get any better. What's going to happen? What does the next 3 months look like? What is the shift going to be for me, if my business, my house? And so I think that's too with the house, you know, redoing the house. I think there's a genuine reason why that's happening. You know what I mean? Why we're able to do that. And so I was trying to reconnect with the kids and trying to say, okay, listen, you know, I'm trying to grow as a business person, but I also need to have that balance as a mom and as, you know, all around partner.
Yeah.
Those because I feel like sometimes it's just easier, right?
Mm.
And they're not 3 and 4 anymore. It's not like you can, uh, put the iPad, you know what I mean, or the gaming.
Yeah, yeah,
I know that's a normal thing for 10 and 14, but I have to remind myself too. I have to have that just daily connections, and sometimes it's just easier to get lost in work, and that's just a
mm.
genuine comment. You know what I mean? I hate to, and
Yeah,
it's one
yeah,
of the reflection, you know what I mean, of what's happening. And so for me at this time, I think taking that inventory and understanding, you know what I mean, yes, they want their gaming in their other time, but being a parent and stepping in and having that foundation, just like I need to have that foundation with business, you know what I mean, like I'm their person, you
yeah.
know. And so
It's
so those are kind of harsh realities, I think, of this quarantine and business
yeah,
and all of it.
yeah.
So
No, it's like, like you said, you're setting up your business, and you're making, those beads, and you're outsourcing it, and you're busy with that. And it's sort of like you said, you're so passionate about it as well, and you've got, like, other stuff going on with, like, family, home,
yeah,
and it's like you're spinning, like, 8 different plates at once, and
right.
like you say, you're trying to find that, like, balance in between, like.
Yeah, and cutting yourself some slack too. Like Richie said, like last time I was really overwhelmed. Like I'm trying to get my children to understand, like you can't wake up with electronics and go to bed with electronics. And I know that
Mm.
we're all like, with Gary V, and I know that he would probably tell me to go pound sand. But if your child doesn't have balance, right? I love Gary V and his message, and I get that these kids, it's a whole different world. We're not going back to where there isn't that
Yeah.
technology. There's not a balance, and you haven't seen the sun, you haven't worked out your brain, your heart, all of
Mm.
that. You have to have a balance, right? And so for my child to be in his room and to wake up, you know what I mean, in those 4 walls, you have to have, you know what I mean? And so, like you say, I'm trying to lead by example, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not with work. And even though it's not a game, it's still a work. It's still a distraction, a diversion, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
modeling that behavior. And I'm not saying, like I told him, he goes, well, you think it's a negative thing with the game. No, no, no. I'm stoked that you're good. But when you are not, when you're wanting other things or expecting things without doing, does that make sense? Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to
Yeah.
teach
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
like you're 14, right? So you as your mom, like, dude, stepping up for your mom. Like you see that she's busy, she's, thriving, doing her thing, and same
Mm.
with you. But yet you're able to compartmentalize, right? And you're like, wait a second, let me do this because I can see that this is going to help her. And in
Yeah.
life, him to be able to do that as well. But I need to model that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
so I know it and I think it and I'm an adult and those kind of things. I think it's, like I said, I've lost sight of that a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm not,
Yeah.
a total, but I think, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, or it's like 1:45. Have they eaten yet? You know,
Yeah.
you know, the
Well,
dog feed, you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, it's similar. It's similar to, like, when my mum's working. Sometimes, like, my mum will finish, like, she works from home, and most times she'll, like, finish at a certain time, and then she'll be like, oh, like, she'll look, we'll look at the time. It might be 7:30. I'm like, oh, this needs doing or that needs doing. Sometimes, like you said, and you can just be chasing your tail sometimes because
Yeah,
people have been so busy or you've missed each other. But, like, with
yeah,
kids and video games, I mean, I like video games now, but I only play them at the weekend
mhm,
because I I will lose that momentum if I go on in the weekday because I know I've got a lot of other stuff I need to do. But, like, with kids, it's almost like it becomes an addiction because they might have their friends on it. It's fun to
exactly.
play. It's relaxing.
And it's the
So,
intention. It's the language that they're doing. So like when I was a kid, I was a baller. You know what I mean? Like if you want to, suck it up, Sally. You know what I mean? If you want to dig in and I'll throw a fastball a little high and tight and you want to see if you can hit it, let's do it. So there's shit talking, right? But there's
mm,
also a different way today that is done. And it's a little bit more malice. It's a little bit more roughneck, if you will, for me when I hear it.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're 14 and like, oh, whatever. And it's really aggressive. And if you were on the outside of the door and you didn't know he was playing, you're like, dang, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It sounds bad. And then his sister listens to it. And so I'm trying to get him to understand that the perception of it, right? My intent behind it. Yes, I've stubbed my toe and I let an F-bomb or whatever it is, but I'm trying to do better. You know what I mean? Like your tone, those kind of things. So when you are playing and it's outside of that, that's what makes me think it's the game because you're
mm,
irritated that you have to stop, or then your attitude shifts a little bit and you haven't done chores and you haven't gone outside, you haven't skated, you haven't surfed, and so, but that's my fault. You know what I mean? So to have that balance. So like I said, I bring it back to having that model and understanding, like you say, starting the day with an intention where I'm going to do this today. And if I don't get to this, you know what I mean? When I had Memphis, I had a really hard time. I'm very scatterbrained and I have a lot going on in my mind. So I had to make lists, but I felt like if I made too long of a list, I wouldn't be successful. So there's certain things, like the top 3 things, like when I get up, that I'll make for the day, and I have to get those things done. But then the other ones, I don't want to make too long of a list because it feels daunting. You know what I mean? Like I want to set up for success. So I guess I'm shift that over to my kids. You know what I mean? If you've done everything you can first, right? And if you get hung up on your game or you want to go skate, you've already done what you needed to do. It's like work. You can't be like, oh, bro, dude, I'll get in there at 11. You know what I mean? See ya. You can't, like deuces. That does not. It's not going to work. You're not going to have a job. Or if you bounce a check or your check or your bank book or whatever it is, have to be accountable. Or if you want to indulge in drinking or whatever the night before and you have to work, everybody needs to be accountable, and you're 14. So we have to set precedent, with that. So I think today, just understanding that you are a role model, you know what I mean? To people that they're do every day. And so to show them that I can do a business and I can do certain things, but that you can give yourself leeway. You know what I mean? You have to give yourself patience and understanding, you know what I mean? That not perfect, and it's how you shift in those moments that are going to make you you know what I mean? Like try those things as smooth as possible, be proactive instead of reactionary, and like I say, it's easier said than done sometimes,
I think sorry.
Just go ahead.
I think that's a big thing where you said be proactive and not reactionary, because I think like we can all react, and half the time we're on like autopilot and we're just reacting to what's going on and we're just doing.
Yes, it's so true. And I noticed too with like my brain having, like, I feel like a creative brain versus a really concrete brain, like numbers guy, in your brain. I feel like my process is so different, and I have to understand that not everybody can relate to that. You know what I mean? My proactive and might be different or triggered by something else. And I'm really finding during this time, like the stress or walls of 4, you know what I mean? We're not being able to go anywhere. The kids have no activity. So like I said, it comes back to, like I said, you have to be patient and you have to understand your intent and coming and apologizing. I think we've learned a lot, you know what I mean? Like, dude, I'm really sorry, bro. You know what I mean? I went from 0 to 10, so really saying and stepping up and be like, I'm really sorry. And so you're not so reactionary. Like it's all a practice, and same with when I first started with Malas. So there's 180.
They're beautiful.
Thanks. But this is a section, right? And so I try to tell people, like, if you only have 5 minutes and you need that in your life, right, that you want to make it quality versus quantity. So just do these 5, right? Just do this section and then stop when you get to a transition. So I think in life, instead of like you say, chasing your tail, I would rather have a quality versus quantity. You know what I mean? And I'm guilty of it. I feel like there's times where I'm ill prepared for the day, even at, 46 years old, or 45 years old, you know what I mean? I think that, it's just a practice, for sure.
Yeah. It's just, I think like you said, it's that, when you've got, family and you're working and there's, your energy is like, you're very passionate about what you're doing and you're very energetic and practical. It's trying to find that even ground amongst everything that's going on, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. And it's
like
within it too. I feel like I try to not control, but like I'm very in tune to, like, if somebody else is upset in that mix, right? So everybody's trying to have that flow, and if somebody's not on board, and I feel like that's what's happening right now. Everybody's kind of at their own leisure, like we want to eat at a different time, we don't want to get up at a different, so the flow has really changed, and I feel like when it's our idea, we're a little bit more excited about it, right? But when it's somebody else's idea, we're forced to do it, we're a little crabby. You know what I mean? And that's what's happening. You know what I mean? So you catch yourself, you're like, why am I so tight? You know what I mean? Why I feel so pressed, and it's because you're in this situation. And then it just, like you say, I think it expands and you're just like, wow, that's so not who I am. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I want to be that person. I want to be proactive in those moments. So
Yeah.
like you say, meditating, being able to exercise and doing those things. And as a child, and having navigated all that, electronic stuff, it's hard for them to separate and compartmentalize like we can. Their brains are still developing, and so it's almost like it desensitizes them. And I
Mm.
never want that to happen. And I
No.
feel like right now I'm having like that in your face. Like if you don't do something, right? And same with you. I mean, myself personally,
Yeah. Yeah.
having where you check out, you know what I mean? I'm going to have a no electronic day or no social media day. Because like following Gary Vee's advice, as a small business, right? I've been on every platform, but my screen time has increased. I mean, 1,000%, right? And
Mm.
like Richie, my man, he's not a tech guy at all. You know what I mean? He checks the news, blows through it, but he doesn't have a cell phone, Adam. You know what I mean? Yeah, right? Right? This is 2020, and so that's just how he functions, and he likes it that way. And life has been fine. He started that as an experiment, and he hasn't had one for a year and a half. You know what I mean? And they know where he can be found. You know what I mean? So he always says where he's going to be. This is one human that literally is like, oh, you know what I mean? In the department of somebody who is genuinely selfless, lovely human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On all aspects. And so I think to have that balance is something that I'm so craving right now. But
Mm.
it's just
Yeah.
part of it, and
I
I
think.
think it's a learning curve.
Yeah. No, massive. I think to not have a phone in this day and age, or a smartphone at least,
Yeah.
you must have, I don't know, a lot more clarity in some way, because like, with smartphones you've got notifications, there's apps, if you're on social media, it's a
Banking.
your
Yeah.
continuous thing. Your friends are sending you videos. There's
Right.
so much going on, and especially if you're running a business or you're doing a podcast or whatever,
Yeah.
it's like you said, you can have down days where you don't use it, but in some way it's like an engine that's there and you have to tend to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and
And
you have to keep doing it.
yeah,
It's
I'm trying to think, I was going to say something else. Oh, it's gone. But no, but yeah, look, with what you're doing, and like you said, that was it. Like video games and technology, it's I mean, I went on video games as a kid a lot, so
mhm,
I can see the difference now I've grown up.
right.
But so I'll do it at the weekend. But like you said, technology, I'll have days of the week when I don't really go on it as much, but with my phone. But I'll still get into the habit of going to bed and being on my phone sometimes, and I'm like, I shouldn't really be doing this. But
Right. Falling asleep to it. You know what I mean? I just think like your brain is not scheduled to do that all the time. You know what I mean? That inundated constant, or especially if you're not wearing like blue light glasses, like my son, and he's right there. So you're either on a little screen or an iPad or a monitor. You know what I mean?
mm,
He goes,
yeah,
well, I'm not on my game. I'm on YouTube or I'm listening to music. I understand that, but there are times where you just have to check out. Do you know what I
mm,
mean? It's the only time in the shower. Like if you had your others, like when you're eating, just like now it's been like, I used to have no electronics at the table. Now they just blow up with their iPad and be like, doo, 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 I'll take a bagel. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, through, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't want electronics. Like there's every kind of streptococcus on that electronic device. You know what I mean? It
yeah.
shouldn't, but it's just
I,
one of those things. Those are the type that I need to get back. I need to pull that,
yeah,
and
I
have
think
that.
yeah, I think you're in the moment more when you haven't got that. It's like if I'm in a relationship, I like to sometimes. I know we've all got phones and we can all do it subconsciously sometimes, but I think it's nice to be in the moment when I haven't got your phone on you. If I walk my dogs around the block, I'll try not to go on my phone, or I won't take it with me because I'm more in the moment. I'm enjoying it a lot more.
Definitely. But it's just like here, like, and it's, everybody likes a train wreck. Everybody's got their phone out. Like somebody's, beating somebody down, or somebody, tripping somebody. Like, I get that it's, if it's a funny thing, like that's your intent, or like, like I said, everybody has it, or to take a picture. And like you say, to walk or to take a sunset in where I really don't need to bust out my phone to capture it. Like it's in here. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
felt it,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So those are the kind of moments where that I want to get back to, you know what I mean? Have the kids get back to. And I feel like we're so used to it. And now it's just a habit, you know what I
mm,
mean? And like I said, and that flows through business, you know what I mean?
mm,
As well,
mm,
you know, just want it to resonate, you know,
mm. Yeah,
throughout everything, you know? So,
yeah. But no, I definitely love what you're doing though, and your work and everything. And like, it's so nice to see like your posts on social media of your ballers,
Mom, yeah.
Maulers, and yeah, no, they're really really I find them really grounding.
Yes. And
You
that's a
know,
lot of them.
just
Yeah. 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 For sure.
I just feel
I
like
just,
really relaxed when I see them. I'm like, oh, that's nice.
That's awesome. And that's, like I said, I just think bringing joy or having something where I think, you know, I'm not projecting results. It's almost like, believing in something, like believing in yourself, like a confidence, you know what I mean? They're not going to, you know, change your world or, you know what I mean, cure cancer, you know what I mean? But it's an intention behind it and you wearing it, you know what I mean? And as it manifests, you know what I mean? You wearing it and
Mm,
every day really placing those intentions and just having those positive thoughts. I remember when I played ball, you know, that was a huge part of my life and such a big character building thing. And that's what I mean about, like, you know, excuse my French, like shit talking, like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to strike you out. You know what I mean? I don't want to win by 20. You know what I mean? I want to 0 to
yeah,
1 and I want to be the last person up batting or the last strike to throw. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because I'm so passionate about it. You know what I mean? And if you
yeah,
can't train that over, and sometimes when you don't see people who have that, but yet you know they have the potential to, it's really hard. You know what I mean? And so
yeah,
just to, because you can't just transfer that, right? But when you wear a mala, you're able to, like, these are my moments. You know what I mean? Nobody else is going to wear them. Nobody else is putting those intentions in them, and it can be whatever you want. You know what I mean? And when I make one, to put your mantra in it and to wear it every day, you know what I mean? I just think sets a tone and a great practice, you know what I mean, in life. No
yeah,
brushing your teeth. And I just think whether you have a mala or you don't have a mala, just getting up and being mindful of, like, wow, dude, what am I gonna, what ass am I gonna kick today? You know what I mean? Is it gonna be
yeah,
finance, personal, whatever it may be? But I think if we lose sight of those intentions, you know, like you say, it's hard to stay grounded and know your
yeah,
why. And like I said, listening to Gary Vee and going back to the platforms, like it was so great. And it's consistency, like you've been preaching, you know, the last couple of days. I think it's really hard. And I find me, like, getting excited about things, but being consistent with certain things, you know what I mean? Or
yeah,
um, you just have to, you know what I mean? To get said.
yeah. No, because yeah, consistency, like, you know, what he talks about, what I've been mentioning. I mean, I used to be crap at it, and it's the things with consistency. It's like you said, it's like showing up almost. It's just doing, and then, you know, like you just build that momentum. I think that's an important thing. Like, you know, building that momentum, and once you feel that, and it feels good, and you feel that benefit um, from that momentum, and you see the result of it,
Right.
and then it's like if you don't do it, then you feel negative. It's like if you, I don't know, if you went to the gym 3 times a week and you didn't go those 3 times a week, you went
Right.
for 2 days instead of three, and you're like, oh, I should have gone. It's
Yeah.
That's how I feel sometimes. If because sometimes like I'll be so busy, and then I've got to like edit a podcast or whatever, and it might be late at night, and I'm like, you know, I'll do it tomorrow, and I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I should have done that. Then you kind of like, it can domino effect.
Totally. But then you also start putting things off, just like self-care. You know what I mean? I remember, and new to the business, I remember when Richie was very honest with me. He's like, well, you have a lot of things going for you that a lot of people don't. And I didn't understand what he meant by that. And then as I've gotten into business, I understand what he's talking about. It's not just a pretty face, but he's like, aesthetically, people stop by your booth, one, because it's inviting, your
Mm,
personality, you know what I mean,
mm,
your passion, you can feel it, you know what I mean, when you walk up, or your smile, or hello.
mm,
So those are the kind of things that you have to have that resonates with people, you know what I mean,
yeah,
that you know. And like you say, if you don't have that self-care, going to the gym, or because I find that we put that off, and like you say, new to a relationship, you're all excited, you know, and then you think, gosh, I used to do these things,
Mm.
And I think getting older and knowing that it's okay to have these precursors in your life to say, this is what I'm worthy of, and this is what I need. And we can be partners, and you know what I mean? These are my
Yeah,
goals.
yeah,
As long as you
yeah,
know that self-care, and if not, then this is what's going to happen. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because you know yourself. And I think sometimes we want to fool ourselves, or we want to, you know what I mean, make excuses, or you know what I mean. I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah,
this doesn't happen, and
yeah,
then you see the domino effect.
yeah.
So
It's all no, that's it. And I mean, like with your like work, I mean, I can like feel and see your passion for what you do. Just talking to you
yeah.
through this,
Mhm.
it gravitates. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think like because you was talking about like with the online side and your business, I thought to myself like it's up to you. This is just what I thought. You could probably do videos, like like walkthrough videos or something like that.
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
time lapses.
Yeah. And so for me, like I said, the editing process, or I'll get to it and I'll get all excited, I'll videotape myself, because again, you just got to throw yourself up there, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And you know what I mean? And, oh, I got to hot roll my hair, you know what I mean? Or I don't look right, or throw a hat on. But I think people are just interested in that authenticity and hearing your
yeah,
voice. And I don't know if you, like when I did the anchor, I was just like, dude, I'm going
yeah,
to do it. In the morning when I meditate, have my coffee, my cup of joe by myself, you know what I mean? That's when I'm going to do it. But I have a kind of a raspy voice anyway. And in the morning, it's more raspy. And so I sent it to my man. And he's like, what kind of podcast or what kind of anchor are you doing over there? But it was my moment. And I think you have to be lighthearted, you know what I mean? And take that constructive criticism and throw yourself out there, you know what I mean? And try your best, and and not think that you don't have a message. I think a lot of times we don't think what we have to offer is going to add value to people's life. And like with Gary Vee, you never know what somebody's going to walk away and what value they're going to take from whatever. Woo, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. It's fine.
um, whatever value they're going to take from that moment, right? And just like my story resonates with people when they come up to my booth, and when I was first in the community and we talk about things, I don't tell them that I was blind to get like, oh man, you know what I mean? I tell them to give them a perspective, right? If I'm going to be blind, there's other people that don't even have arms, can't talk, can't, fully see. I mean, right out of the gate, you know what I mean? And they almost have, and not to sound disrespectful, but they almost like that's their way of life. They know no different. And so when you're struck with like all of a sudden you can see and then it's black, you know what I mean? Like I was watching a documentary. Kirby Puckett is blind from diabetes, but here's a man who was able to like all kinds of stadiums, you know what I mean, and go through life and have these experiences, and yet now he cannot see it all. And so I think when I tell those stories, I just want it to resonate with people. Like, this is where I was at, right? And you can't sit and marinate in that, no matter what you're in, life, business, because nobody's going to come down and give you that self-reliance, that confidence, that commitment to yourself, right? If you don't have that drive, I don't know if you're going to thrive, right? And so for me, I had two small kids looking up to me, you know what I mean? So I had to, I had no other choice, right? And so to tell people that, they're like, oh, well, maybe, my bad hair day is not what I need to be worried about. You know what I mean? Like, put it in real perspective, you know what I mean? And I hate to be so trivial like that, but I think sometimes we get caught up and like, well, damn, I didn't get that front row parking. Well, maybe I need to walk an extra block. You know what I mean? Let's limit our tears or what we can gripe about, I guess, and be grateful and present for the things that we do have, and that's why I tell my story. But always inevitably, which I get, but now that I'm on the other side of it, I guess I didn't realize when I was in it how rough it was. You know what I mean? Like what? Because you don't have a choice. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. And if I didn't have my dad come down in that one person, you know what I mean? I'm sure it would have been much more difficult. But I know I could have done it. I do. Because you have no choice. Like when you're somebody's person, just like the dogs are your person, you're their person, or you know what I mean? And your mom, you're her person, So I think that's really important to understand when you have a story, and to be authentic and to stand for that, stand for something, You know what I mean? When you're doing that. And like we talked about converting in business, that's been the hardest part, because I love sharing that and giving people, when they walk away or when they come up to your booth, you never know what a hello will do, or wow, I really want to gift this mala to you, and what they walk away with. You know what I mean? Because there's times when I remember when I first started, and still to this day, where I give the littles away. That's my favorites. Kids that have manners, or, you know, or just because something is going on and you catch it and nobody else sees it, you know, and they need that in that moment, all the way to malas, you know, to somebody that I don't even know, that it brought joy to them. And at the moment, they're not able to, you know, have the funds to have that joy in their life, I guess. And I can give that simple joy to them. And so for me, that's so important, that when you come across somebody, hold a door, good morning, a smile, no matter who you are, you know, as a human, you know. So that's what, yeah.
No, I agree with what you said. No, I completely agree. And I think it's like your perspective on things, isn't it? And, you know, you was on about like people who've been blind. And I think, you know, like some people who, you know, that thing happens to them. It's like, well, they probably decide, you know, what does that need to do? And they just adapt. And, you know, especially some people who are born with disabilities or certain conditions, they're just, you know, just adapting and doing, and, you know, evolving. And I saw a video, and it was a young kid who was a gymnast, and she had no legs. She was born with no legs, little girl. And she's doing gymnastics and spinning around and everything. And I was like, well, you know, probably doing it better than some people with legs, you know. So,
and what does it take for you to get out of bed, and what does it take for her to get out of bed, or to get into a chair? Just little things like that, you know. Holding my head down. I remember when I was blind, and I think body language and being able to approach people and not having your own fears was that I learned. So when I had detached retinas, you have to be face down, right? So you have to literally show people the top of your head when you walk down, because gravity helps heal. So when you are able to stand up or walk around, even then you still have to keep your head down, right? And so to be a confident person and to be, you know, very outgoing was very hard for me, because you know what I mean? You just feel like, you know what I mean? It's like having, whatever it was, just to take a shower. And I remember going back to self-care, my dad's like, because it was really hard for him too. He was coming into a situation. It was like week 3. He's taking care of my kids, cleaning the house, cooking, cleaning, walking the dog, all of these things, because I'm completely bedridden and trying to take eye drops, and he's taking care of me. So it was a lot. So week 3 was, you know, like, you know, and he's like, that's it, we're going to go for a self-care day. And him and we went to go get pedicures, and it was the best thing, you know what I mean? But it's one of those things, and it's, when you're in the moment, you're just like, okay, what can I do to I have to reset, recharge, you know. And you have to be, like you say, as you get older, recognize those things in those moments where you have to come back to, you know, okay, let's just slow it down, you know, let's be present, let's be in the moment, and understand why people are attracted to your booth or to that space. You know, light attracts light, you know. And I think it's interesting when people are in your life, or certain times in your life too, what kind of value they do bring to your life, you know. And it could be short time, you know. It's not a selfish thing, I think, but I think it's just stages in all of our lives, you know what I mean, that we go through, and same in business and in life, you know.
No, I completely agree with that. Like, I think, like you said, the people you meet, I think, like, no, the people you meet and the things that come up for you are all for a reason in some way. And I found that, you know, with COVID and the situation, the connections I've made, and like, you know, like yourself, I'm like, you know, I just trust, like, you know, the universe and whatever comes my way, you know, the connections and people I meet. I think it's so important, you know, to, like I said, to be aware of that, and to accept that.
Definitely. Like during your podcast, like if you found somebody, you're like, wow, I can't get them out of my mind. Do you know what I mean? Like what resonates? I have 2 clients that, like, I think I shared the story where she tried on the bracelet and she said she was too fat. You know what I mean? And she was not overweight by any means. You know what I mean? She wasn't super skinny. You know what I mean? Bucko 5, like probably she wanted in her head. You know what I mean? But she looked lovely. And right there, it was like, wait a second. How can you come into this space? You know what I mean? like, oh,
Yeah.
and walk with that. You were not walking away from my booth. And we made it right. You have to make that square. And so like when it comes across your life, I think like you say, you have a responsibility to be like, wait a second, let me take that in and be like, because I couldn't get out of my mind. And I ended up making a mala for her. And the girl was in tears, like didn't leave her house for a long time, didn't wear any jewelry, was just like really upset. And when I made it for her, her sister says she has not taken it off. And so those are the moments, you know what I mean, that really resonate with you. Like that's why you do it. But at the same time, it makes you mindful, right, of where people's headspaces are, you know what I mean, and what you do, very little things to at least comfort them in those moments, you know what I mean, or make, you know, not to make light of it, I guess, like to recognize it, you know.
Yeah, no, of course, it's that value that you provide, isn't it? And that's like something that outweighs, you know, anything else, isn't it? And your values behind it and your passion behind it. That the difference it makes to those people.
Yes.
And you know, like you said, you don't know what people have been through or what they're going through. Do you know, and you could make them something that, you know, changes how they feel.
Definitely.
That's powerful, isn't it?
It really is. And it's almost, like I said, addicting. Like when I was there last night, I was just so giddy. And then when she asked about the anklet, I was like, what? You know, so excited. And then, you know, my man, Richie, he's just like, at the end of the night, he's like, wow, it's really great to see you in your, like in your vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really fun. And it's not even about like an audience. I just think you're around like-minded people, right? It gets excited and so genuine. But I also, you know, have found too during business that I have to refrain because, you know, there are parts of my business, you know what I mean, where it could be a little creepy sometimes. And I don't recognize that. So I remember when my dad was visiting, I give everybody a hug when I give them a mala, especially if I make it handcrafted and put your mantra in it, right? I just want that connection. And I've never felt uncomfortable. And I remember my dad, I'd handed this mala over and I'd given, he goes, well, can I have a hug? And I was like, oh yeah, I always give everybody a hug, you know, and I've asked Richie too, because I don't want it to be uncomfortable, you know what I mean? But that's not why I do it. But I also want, like, I genuinely want to have that, you know, I gotta hug it out, you know what I mean? I gotta have that, you know, that seals the deal, I guess. And anyway, so I lean in and gave a hug, and the gentleman leaves, and my dad leans over and he goes, I think he was hitting on you. And it occurred to me, you know what I mean? But he was like, I don't know if Richie's gonna like that. But you know what I mean? But it was a genuine moment. But from the outside looking in, I had never thought about it that way.
Seen it from angle, yeah.
Seen it from that angle. And he's like, you know, and not to toot my own horn, he's like, you know, and this is my dad saying, he's like, you know, you're a very pretty lady. You know, there's going to be people that think, you know, so make sure that you don't convey that, you know, but I also don't want to miss out on that authenticity either. You know what I mean? You hope that you can handle yourself in those moments, you know what I mean, with class, or, you know what I mean, to try to use a situation. So I'd never had an issue like that until, but it was interesting, you know, but there are aspects where I think that's where business comes in, and being business savvy. And even though you want that authenticity and that, that natural vibe, there is that element of business that I think I have to get better at, or having boundaries, you know what I mean, in my business, or time. Like I'm not good with time. Like I'll fix it anytime, and valuing my money or like repairs. It's almost like I can't even, I'm like, no, just take it. I'll just do it. You know what I mean? Because it is my piece. You know, just because I want them to be pleased with it. But if you're disrespectful with your piece and then I fix it, you know what I mean? But you're telling me one thing, it's almost like I just want to do it because I don't want a piece out there that isn't, you know, up to my standard, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
So that, it's just, and I want them to understand that I really genuinely care about my customer service. You know what I mean? So those are all learning aspects, like you say, of being business, and, you know, doing what you do, having a podcast, having those limitations. Like, this is the parameters that I can be within, you know what I mean? As well as having that authenticity as well, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, like with what you said, you know, you've got to be yourself, haven't you? You've got to be authentic, and people are going to see that. People are going to see that you're being genuine.
Right.
If you're trying to be, I don't know any famous people that make beads or anything, but if you're trying to be someone else, people are going to see that. You can take you can take from what other people are doing and do it, have your spin on it. But
Yeah.
like you said, you've got to be genuine and be yourself. And I think, like, in terms of like giving hugs and things like that, there's a time and place, isn't there? I think. And
Yeah.
it's like if you're at a business meeting with some corporate people, you're something you wouldn't go give them,
Totally.
so,
Right.
but in the
Right.
market, I think that's fine. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's gauging with, what, how you speak to someone, you just have to
Yeah.
gauge it, don't you? And I think, like you said,
Yeah.
it's all a process, and we're always learning and growing
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah. And that brings me back to, like, like a business meeting. So when I first was going out of education, right, when I lost my sight in my right eye and I was recovering and I was totally blind, I wasn't sure I was going to go back to the classroom. So they said, absolutely not, we're going to have a medical hold on you. You can't go back. So that's where I made the shift, and making my friends was like, well, let's make a model, let's meditate. And that's when I started making jewelry. Right. And so when I was at the market, I think I shared with you that I was at the market set up for 2 weeks and this businessman came by, right? Paul, do you remember this story?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So so talking about hugs, right? So at Christmas time, it was right before Christmas time. And this is when I hadn't even thought about, the only thing I wanted to get was stockings for the kids. Like I didn't even have like 2 nickels to rub together. Like it was really dismal, you know what I mean? But I had what I needed, not my wants, right? But I just wanted to make Christmas special, just for the stocking, sake of it. And that's what I could afford. Anyway, and I remember him saying, I really want you to design for us. And he hands me this card. And you have to remember, I met this person like 2 days prior. I don't know this person from anybody. And he hands me this card, and it's a Christmas card. And he goes, now listen, inside of it, I don't want you, it's just for you and the kids. I don't want any bills or anything like that, because you got to remember, my mindset was, I'm behind in my mortgage. I'm going to lose the house 13 days, so it was really paramount for me, imperative that I, use my money wisely. And in the card was 2 $500 Visa cards for the kids and $2,000. And I was just like, and so here's this business person, right? And I almost jumped out of my skin, you know what I mean? And of course, the first thing I do was like, oh my God, and I had to hug him. And then in the end, you're just like, but it was such a genuine, response. You know what I mean? I was just overwhelmed with emotion. And I felt like one of those people. I was like, oh, sorry. I was like brushing off his shirt, and I'm like, oh, sorry. You know what I mean? But nigga, you know what I mean? I was crying, and I was like, oh my God, I'm, so sorry. But it was such a selfless thing.
Yeah.
And he changed that trajectory of where I was going and the confidence that I had in myself. Like Richie, I remember him saying, I've not ever seen anybody in the 17 years that I've done a market. And again, it's not to toot my own horn. I just didn't know their perspective of it. And there's hundreds of jewelers that come in and out of the farmer's market, and he goes, only 2 have made, you know that they've made a name for themselves or made money outside of having another gig. Right. And he goes, so to watch it in front of my own eyes was just an epic experience. So there is a moment where, I did get a hall pass for hugging in a boardroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was like, that was my roundabout to cut to the chase. But it was just over such an epic moment in my life. You know what I mean? Where I just couldn't imagine that it was happening. But of course I spent every dime on bills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it got me to a peace of mind in my heart and in that space where I was like, it was breathable. I just think that if you don't have those moments in life to hang on to and to have that perspective, it's so hard, and like you can have empathy. I think this is a perfect a segue, the climate that we're in. To have empathy and yet to not have that experience is okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
Of course.
I feel that very hard because everybody wants to be in the wagon like I've got that experience. And it's okay not to. But to interject your empathy. And I just feel like there's so many people where it's disproportionate of their passion. And you never want to take somebody's passion away, but you also want to know what's the reason behind it. Like the big thing for me right now, and I'm not a medical expert, but like the masks, it's hard for me to, nobody gets COVID in Walmart down here, but they're like, it's like a cattle call. You know what I mean? There's so many people going in and out of that store. Right. And it's so hard for them to have like a swap meet and no mask, or to have a certain type of mask, like those shields, you know what I mean? so to have a conversation with somebody, I think that's where we've had a lot of disconnect here. You know what I mean? To have those passionate conversations and to have that authenticity behind it, which is fine. You know what I mean? To have your own passion and your own say. But I think so many times it's displaced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right now. So I feel like that's
Nice.
hard to navigate through.
It's definitely a challenge with that, with the masks and like, you know, like people's facial expressions and like you said,
Yeah.
and you can't
Yes.
hear what people are saying. But
So, or they're smiling, and you know what I mean? I
yeah.
just want to go, like, you know, that was,
Yeah.
you know, when I was I worked with deaf children, you know what I mean, or hard of hearing, or cochlear implants, or children with autism, and it's so doing one of these, you know what I mean, instead of clapping, because sometimes it's overstimulating, you know, we do this, and so it's kind of a funny.
Oh, that's lovely. That's really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, to show excitement, you know what I mean, but not be loud. So,
Yeah. But no,
yeah.
with before we finish, I was going to say like, when you mentioned about the market and that guy that came in, like
Yeah.
I found it amazing, you know, that story when you first told me, is that, you know, you was at the market, he came in, and you know he wanted you to work for him and make, you know, these bracelets, and
Yeah.
you know you was, you know, in a bit of a dark time, you know, time around
Yes.
then, and it's like, you know, it was almost fate, you know, and it
Yeah.
was like, you know, what, like a once in a lifetime thing, and you worked for him for some time, and
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. It
it's
was Paul Buss.
really amazing.
Yeah. Paul Buss is his name, and his company is Original Grain, and he is just one of the most epic people that I know. And I just think it was such a thing to take a chance on somebody, that when you walk by, that you just get a feeling, you know what I mean? But yet it sets precedent for somebody's trajectory of their path, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And confidence that it built in me, even though, you know, like everybody would say they're epic pieces and people would love them, I was so new and so green, you know, and to
Mm.
have people say like, wow, you're still making epic pieces and you're still the same person, and to have people come back to my booth, you know, from the first day that I was there, to have that little oval stand with literally just a T-bar with
Mm.
like 10 bracelets and 4 malas, which I gave all away. You know what I mean? So it was just really cool for him to stop and take in my little part of the world. So no matter how big your space is or how teeny it is, you can always make that your place to stand
Yeah.
tall. And I'll never, I have a picture of me where I was standing that day. I had a board and just a little table, and I literally stood next to it. And it was probably 2 by 3 feet. That, 2 by 4 feet. That was my space where my table was set up between 2 other booths. And just for him,
Wow.
I remember him asking, he goes, well, how come you don't take credit? And I was like, I don't even have a credit card machine. I don't even know what Venmo was. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? He's like, oh, you got to take credit. And so, of course, he whipped out, 2 hundies, and he goes, just keep the change, I was like, oh, because I didn't know if it was legit, I mean, Richie's trying to lean in, and he's like, I have a meeting, here's some numbers. And if that man was not legit, I mean, he was super authentic, and
Yeah.
I just so appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah.
So you never know
No.
who's going to walk around the corner.
Yeah. No, that's it, exactly. I
Yeah.
I love like, you know, what you do, and you know your work and your story, and you know how you've overcome, you know, the things that you have, you know, with, you know, with your what happened with your eyesight, and you know, and you just keep on going, and you're so passionate about what you do, and it's like a, you know, breath of fresh air, and it's so nice, you know, to connect with you, and you know, for you to talk about what you do. I think it's really, you know, motivating, and you know, will hopefully encourage other people to find, you know, their passion, and not to let anything stop them. And I think.
Definitely. And I think too, a thing to keep in mind is like, it doesn't have to be a cookie cutter way of how you do things, right? I think we all look into other people's lives and Instagram, and, not everything is, sunshine and rainbows. You know what I mean?
Mm.
There are dark paths and, peaks and valleys in life, and it's how you get through those and on the other side,
Mm.
that really matter and show that character,
Yeah.
and there are going to be have rough days. And like you say, understanding, why you're in that moment. And, you know, like things happen for a reason. You know what I mean? Just like I didn't sell my house. I remember when I was getting ready to sell my house. Can you imagine? And then I went blind and COVID. I mean, it's just the things, there's a reason why you feel a pull and you should listen to them. You know what I mean? And really sit and let it resonate with you, you know, as a person. And you're meditating or whatever you're doing, it's the forward motion, right? Is progress. Just start. You know what I mean? It's like exercising. I remember I wasn't a runner. You know, I used to be a bigger girl, and it was really hard for me to run. And I would walk a lap, run a half, walk a lap, run a half, run a half, or walk a half, run a lap, you know? So each, you know, you build on that, you know? And so it's just, like you say, you just have to remind yourself of those little things of when you first started. Look how far you come, you know? So I appreciate having me on.
No, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. It's you know, lovely talking to you again.
Definitely. If you'll have everybody, if I could do a plug for Jara Young Designs, that'd be awesome. So check me out on Instagram.
Yes. So that's so your Instagram's Jara.
It's Jara Young Designs. So my name is Jara Mcconnell, but I go by it's Jara Young Designs. Yeah.
Yeah. No, of course. I'll put in your details in the podcast now.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But no, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
You too as well, Adam. Have an epic day.
I will do. You too. Anyway, see you later. See you later.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.